do not hear right cannot speak right. Have you ever noticed that deaf people talk funny? They talk funny because they hear funny. You talk funny when you hear funny.
I have failed far more times than I've succeeded. Far more. You will never succeed more than you fail. That's not how it works. You know why? Because failure is a wonderful teacher. It's the only way to learn. You have to fail. Failure is a part of the process to becoming successful. I tell people this all the time. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in the world, he took 946 game-winning shots. 946 times since he was in high school, the ball has been in his hand to take the game-winning shot with no time on the clock. He has only made 146 of those. He has missed over 700 times, but he has made 146. You know what they write about? When he make it. They write about when you make it. So guess what? When you get through failing, all you got to do is make one. All you got to do is make one. I've had in my career probably a total of, I've been to over 200 pitch meetings to pitch ideas in Hollywood. Out of those 200, they have picked 5 of them. 200 meetings, 200 show ideas, they've picked 5 of them. But you know what them 5 was? Hits. So you know what they made me? A star. I only had 5. I only hit 5. The rest of the shows I had somebody thought of and asked me to be on the show, and I might have turned it into a hit. But I've only been picked, 5 of my ideas got picked. In 33 years, 5 ideas got picked. All I need is 5 hits. That's all. Y'all don't even know I was in them other meetings. They don't write about it. They just write about my hits. You just need a hit, man. So when you fail, it's a part of the process. Keep going. You're supposed to fail. Shit, who you know that gets it right all the time? That's impossible. You have to fail. Matter of fact, when you fail, be glad about it. Every time you fail, you're one step closer. So every time you fail, say, whew, got that out the way. Go to the next one. Fail again, okay, I got 2 out the way. What's gonna happen is if you just keep swinging, you're gonna get a hit. A baseball player gets paid millions and millions of dollars for a 300 batting average. That means out of every 10 times he goes to the plate, he only hits the ball 3 times. They're millionaires. They only hit it 3 times. Man, please.
While the people are giving up, feeling like victims, feeling powerless, becoming negative, turning on each other rather than to each other, feeling that they can't make it. Be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind with the mindset of that it's possible that we can save this generation. It's possible that we can create new industries, a new economy. It's possible that I can find a new profession, a new job. It's possible I can create a new life. And it's necessary that I become actively involved in becoming a positive force in my life and on the planet. And it's me, yes, it's you, it's all of us pulling together, working together to create this brand new future. And it's going to be hard. Easy is not an option. But if it's hard, we will do it hard. Whatever is required to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And it's worth it. Yes, it's worth whatever we have to do. And once we know that, it is done. It is done. It is done. I say to you, whatever your dreams are, whatever you want to do, in the spirit of Jack, march forth.
I know most people don't make definite plans, but don't let that be you. The guy says, well, you work where I work, but the time you get home, it's late. You've got to have a bite to eat, watch a little TV, and get to bed. You can't sit up half of the night and plan. And this is the guy who's behind on his car note. He's a good worker, hard worker, sincere. But I've discovered that you can be sincere and work hard all your life and wind up broke and embarrassed. You've got to be better than a good worker. You've got to be a good planner, a good goal setter. You've heard the old saying, the people who fail to plan are planning to fail. It's true. So work on your plans. Put yourself in the top few percent who put this power to work for themselves. Writing your goals down also shows you are serious. And to do better, you must get serious. You don't have to be grim, but you do have to be serious. Hey, everybody hopes things will get better, but remember, the future does not get better by hope. It gets better by plan. And hope unaided by clear plans can finally become an illness. There's a Bible phrase that says, hope long delayed makes the heart sick. It's a sickness. I used to have the illness known as passive hope. It's bad. And there's one that is even worse, and that is called happy hope. That is really bad. The man is 50, and he's broke, and he's still smiling. I'd like to share with you some further observations I've made on goal setting. Understand that your goals, whatever they are affecting you all day long. Your goals affect your handshake, your attitude, how you feel. Your goals affect how you look, how you dress, how you walk, how you talk, all day, every day. Your personality, conversation, activity, it's all affected by your goals. I asked a man one time, "What are your goals for this month?" And he said, "If I could just scrape up enough money to pay these lousy bills." That was his goal. Hey, I'm not saying it isn't a goal. It is, but it's such a poor goal. It certainly isn't inspiring. You don't jump out of bed on Monday morning and say, "Oh boy, another chance to go out and scrape up the money to pay these lousy bills." The point is that goals should be fun. They should be big, challenging, rewarding. They should allow you to grow. Remember, too, that the major purpose of having a goal is not just to acquire the goal. The major reason for setting goals is to compel yourself to become the person it takes to achieve them. In other words, attaining the goal is of secondary importance. What's far more important is what you become in the pursuit of it. The greatest value in becoming a millionaire, for example, is not the $1 million. The greatest value is the skills, the knowledge, the discipline, and the leadership qualities you acquired in becoming a millionaire. It's the experience you acquired in planning, development, strategy. It's other qualities you acquired, such as courage, commitment, and willpower, to attract $1 million. You could lose everything you attained, but you could not lose the skills, knowledge, and experience you have obtained. Even better than having is being. Here's a most important question to spend some time answering. What kind of person will I have to become to get all I want? Write down a few thoughts on that. Write down some skills you'll have to develop, for example, and some of the things you're going to have to learn. Just spend a little time writing a few sentences on this. What kind of person will I have to become to get all I want? The answer to this will give you some personal development goals. Remember that income does not far exceed personal development. All of us have to do this kind of self-examination. I have to look at my own life and say, well, here's what I want, but am I willing to become what it takes to get what I want? If I'm too lazy, if I don't want to learn, read, study, and grow to become that kind of person, then I cannot attract what I want. Now, either I have to change my wants, or I have to change myself. Here are a few more key points I'd like to share with you on goals and designing your future. First, if you don't right now feel as if you're equipped to get all you want, just remember, ability will grow to match your strong dreams. That's why the goal-setting process we've discussed is so important. The more you work on this, the more ideas you will get on how you can change, how you can grow. I am nowhere near the person I was when I met Mr. Shope 25 years ago. I'm not that person anymore. I've changed. There's nothing you can do about the past, but you can do a great deal about your future. You don't have to be the same person you were yesterday. You can make changes in your life, absolutely startling changes, in a fairly short period of time. You can make changes you can't even conceive of now. If you give yourself a chance, your abilities will grow. You have untapped talents and potential that you haven't even reached for yet.
Live your life from truth and you will survive everything. Everything. I believe even death. You will survive everything if you can live your life from the point of view of truth. You will be wounded many times in your life. You'll make mistakes. Some people will call them failures. But I have learned that failure is really God's way of saying, excuse me, you're moving in the wrong direction. It's about opening your space, your heart space, so that you can love more. You know, that's really all money is for. Money's worth nothing if it can't buy you the opportunity to love more. For me, luck is preparation, meeting the moment of opportunity. There is no luck without you being prepared to handle that moment of opportunity. And so what I would say for myself is that because of my hand in a hand and a force greater than my own, I have been prepared in ways that I didn't even know I was being prepared for.
I'm always connecting to an idea. I'm always asked, why am I making this? Why? So I'm putting this out in the world. Why?
What I realized is that the only sustainable mission throughout your whole existence is to improve lives. And as soon as I made the shift in my mind from trying to be big and trying to have money and trying to be popular to making sure that I improved lives every step of the way on this earth, then all of a sudden I started experiencing healing. If you're scared, you're not going to take the chances that you need to take to realize your dreams.
And that was the thing for me. I don't mind being scared, but I'm still going to do it.
Life is hard, right? Like, yeah, you might get hurt. It's like, you know, your heart might get broken, you know? It's like you might lose your job, but you still gotta commit, you know? You gotta commit, right? You know what I mean? You know, you meet somebody and hey, you know, you like her and she likes you and you're hesitating. Don't hesitate. Go. Commit. You gotta commit. You know, you might get hurt, you might lose something, but it's like you can't experience the joy that is intended for you in life if you don't go.
The dreams that I have is I want to be valuable. Like, I want to be valuable to humanity. I want to, you know, I haven't totally found my calling as of yet, but I want my life to be of value to as many people and in as many ways as possible.
And understanding that really changed the meaning of my life, in that I was no longer driven by what other people wanted me to do, but took charge of my own destiny, making choices based upon what do I feel is the next right move for me.
As that shift happens in you, you'll be feeling the world by it. You'll be embraced by it. Now I'm always at the beginning. I have a reset button, and I ride that button constantly. Once that button is functioning in your life, there's no story that the mind could create that will be as compelling.
It's a day to define who you truly are inside. What is your true purpose? How much of yourself do you have left? Is life really that bad? Do you really think it's that tough?
You know, we all go through pain. We all go through pain. We all go through something. We all go through our go-through. I wouldn't have time to tell you about all the trauma that I went through in my life. But I just figured since I went through so much trauma, I might as well use the trauma to make all my dreams become a reality.
You just have to do it. You have to go. You have to take that first step. You have to push. You have to drive. You have to strive every time to get a little bit better. You have to strive not to fall prey to your own doubts and insecurities.
What is it that gives your life a sense of meaning and purpose? Because once you find that, it puts you in your power place. See, if you know what your life work is, I encourage you to start working on it. If you can't do it all at one time, do just a little bit of it. And if you don't know what it is that you showed up to do, if you don't know why you're here, I encourage you to find out what your purpose is here. What is the meaning of your life? What will be different? Have you ever asked yourself that question? I've done that. I remember coming from a friend of mine's funeral, and I was reflecting on how much time I had left. And I went for a walk in a park thinking about this guy whose life was so promising. And I mean, he wasn't an old guy. He was quite young, in fact. And I thought about all of the things that he said he was going to do, and he never got a chance to do those things. And I started thinking about my own life and how much time I had left to do the things that I would like to do. And at that time, I wasn't sure what my life purpose was, what my life's work was. I wasn't sure about it at that time. And I thought about it quite a lot.
All right, so you wrote it down. Two types of people. So you got my homie that called me the other day. Like, I'm like, this is blowing my mind. I'm like, God, I'm the #1 motivational speaker. Like, I don't know why you're calling me and you're not getting personal development from me. Well, listen to what I just said. This is my best friend in the whole wide world. very close. Like, this is the dude I trust with my wife and my kid. Like, this is the person that my dreams, like, he helped me with my dream. I said, why are we on the phone talking about deficits right now? Why are you doing that? Do you know people who don't know me and I'm not their best friend in the whole wide world have gone through one of my programs and now they killing the game, and you know me and you're not killing the game? Like, why are we on the phone talking about, okay, so we're gonna write down, you wrote down your goals and your dreams. I want you to write down on the other side what's keeping you from those, and just be real.
I had some idea, but I wasn't convinced, and I don't think I felt worthy. I didn't believe that it could be me to do this kind of work that I'm doing right now. And I say to you that if you begin to take a conscious effort to find out what it is that you're supposed to do, I say that it can literally save your life. I said that it can literally save your life. 85% of the American public, according to recent studies, are going to jobs that they hate, working on jobs that do not challenge them.
Because I want to talk about the conversation he and I had. Because what's keeping you from that, we don't have to talk about that, and we're going to have to deal with that today, and we're going to have to finish that for the rest of our lives. So two types of people, right? So we're on the phone, I'm like, yo, God, do me a favor. Like, can we stop talking about your reality? I'm not interested. I'm like right now in marital bliss, and you trying to bring me back to divorce. Like, you talking about your marriage and where it ain't. I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm in bliss, so don't bring me there. I'm a multimillionaire. You talking about you're not making enough money to take care of you. I don't want to talk about that talk. Can we talk about your dreams and goals and get to them? So we're having a conversation, right? And so I said, look, just stop, right? Just tell me, what are your dreams and goals? You're like, to be a multimillionaire, to do this with my wife, take care of my kid. I said, okay, let's talk for a minute, let's talk. But do you know what it takes to be a multimillionaire? He's like, absolutely, and I'm in the industry, as a matter of fact, where in another 3 months, if I do what I'm supposed to do, I can actually make. I said, what? You're in the industry that you can do what? He was like, I'm in the industry where I can make $1 million between now, October, November, December. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, what industry you in? He said, it's so industry. I said, that's.
And as Joe Namath said, if you aren't going all the way, why go at all? But it's doing that in face of the fear. It's doing that in face of the difficulties. It isn't only because someone is great that they say you should either do it all the way to play hard or go home. They're not saying it because the process is in and of itself rewarding. They're saying it because there is something that they're trying to accomplish that demands it, that they're prepared to play on a world stage. And once you know why you're doing what you're doing, once something sits at the core of your being, and despite how difficult, painful, awkward it may be to push forward, you push forward no matter what the odds. And as Hannibal said, one of the greatest military leaders of all time, I will either find a way or I'll make one. And he said that as he was getting elephants across the Alps.
Life cannot apologize. Life will continue to go on. You just happen to be a part of it, but you only got so much time, so you can't waste it. You can't concern yourself about things that you have no control over. When it starts to get tough, you must get a little bit tough. You must understand that you are not the only one in this world that's got a story to tell. The stage is set. And it's time to rock and roll. You are walking into an arena, and you must be ready to work. There can be no weakness. There can be no excuses.
Now, when you think of the difficulties that you face in trying to do what you're trying to accomplish, think about that man amassing an army and getting elephants to climb a mountain and saying not, this is impossible, but rather, there's not already a way present, I will make one. And when you can look at that, when you can look at your own inadequacies, when you can accept that you are not yet good enough, but you know that you'll put in the work to get there, you know that you'll learn the things that you need to learn, that you will push and you will practice and you will shape yourself into someone capable of doing it. And if you have to literally carve your own path out of the stone granite of a mountainside, you will do that because that's what your goals demand. And when you're prepared to do whatever your goals demand, you will accomplish whatever you set your mind to.
The application and how you apply it will determine the outcome of your success. This place of business, you cannot mess around and play games with it. This place of business is where you pay your dues. You earn your keep. You do what's necessary to push every rep, because the repetitions are gonna come down on you really hard. For every rep, there will be a significant story to tell. Will you be able to push the next rep? Will you have just a little bit more power to get the next one? For every rep tells a story about you.
As Ernest Hemingway noted, the world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are stronger in the broken places. But my question is, why isn't everyone? To me, it comes down to the strategies that you use. There really isn't anything objectively good or bad. There isn't anything that happens to you that can't be overcome. There isn't anything that could happen to you, anything that when you turn inward, you can't find a reason to overcome. You can't find a way to put those pieces back together, and that becomes your job. It becomes literally up to you whether you're going to sit and wallow and woe is me, because what happened, happened, and there's no way to take it back. But how you respond, what you bring to that table, whether you meet fire with fire, whether you meet that adversity with falling apart, becoming weaker in the areas that broke, or you bind them and mend them, and it becomes like a weld that literally makes you stronger.
When somebody comes and says, John, I want to be a leader, I always ask them the question, why? Why do you want to be a leader? I mean, do you want to be a leader because you want a corner office? Do you want to be a leader because you like to be in control? Do you want to be a leader because you love to be in the front of the pack? Do you want to be a leader because you want to have a good parking place? Why do you want to be a leader? Because leadership isn't easy. Leadership a lot of times isn't fun. Leadership a lot of times is kind of lonely. There's only one reason to be a leader, and that is to add value to people. And you and I will only add value to people if we truly value them. I have a nonprofit organization, Equip, that's trained almost 2 million leaders internationally around the world. And I kid you not, as I go to developing countries twice a year and I travel internationally and I sit down, sometimes I have the privilege of being in the offices of presidents of countries. And as I watch these developing countries, the thing that is the cardinal sin among leadership so much is that they have leaders of their countries that truly don't value the people. And if you and I don't value people, we will devalue people. Number two, if you want to add value to people, you have to make yourself more valuable. You just have to get better. You have to keep growing. You have to keep learning. You have to keep developing. Why? Very simply. If you're leading the pack, you've got to be able to give what you have, and you can't give what you don't have. And so therefore, you've got to put a lot of good stuff in so that you can pass it on to others and share with them and add value to them. Thirdly, if you want to add value to people, you have to know and relate to what other people value. You and I have to walk slowly through the crowd. We have to listen. We have to care. You see, great leaders are first of all listeners, and then they're learners, and then they're leaders. They really do take their cue from the people. They understand that the key of leadership is connecting with the people that you lead, and the only way that you and I ever connect is by caring enough to listen. Number four is very important to me. When I'm speaking in the business community, I always share with them that for them there are 3 ways to add value to people, but for me there are 4. And I tell them I'll give them the 3. And so I'll spend maybe an hour doing those 3 things I just shared with you, talking about how to add value to people. And inevitably, when I'm done with the 3, somebody raised their hand and say, John, you said that for you there was 4, but you said there's only 3 for us. I said, yes, it's nothing personal, but this is about my faith. And so I don't really need to share this with you. It's because I'm trying to help you, and I don't want to cross boundaries with you. And inevitably they'll say, but John, tell us what yours is. And I'll say, well, okay, you can hear mine, but don't write it down. In fact, don't listen. Because number 4 for me is, if I really want to add value to people, I have to do the things that God values.
How would you tell us to develop a habit of curiosity.
Well, you know what? People do look at me and see me as creative because I've written so many books, and I am curious. But when I started off in college, in my freshman psych class, they gave us a test for each student to take on creativity. And there were 17 in that class. I can remember it well. And I was at the bottom of the class on creativity. I mean, I was like number 17 out of 17. And what the teacher posted the scores. And so, I mean, I saw how bad I was. And then I really felt bad, not only because I wasn't creative, but I was going to go pastor, I was going to go into ministry, I was going to teach, I was going to do sermons. And then I got to thinking to myself, I'm going to be another boring preacher. And, you know, that just gripped me. I thought, oh, this is going to be awful. I'm going to bore people all my life, you know what I mean? And then I'm going to ask them to pay while they hear me. I mean, this is an awful deal. So, and so two things I did. And I talk about it in the book. One is I started filing. I started taking thoughts and quotes. And the reason I started doing that is I thought, if I'm not going to be good at what I say, I need to quote somebody that is good. And so I started filing things that other people would say. So I'd go around and I'd say, well, Kim said, you know what I mean? And Joe said, and Susie said. And so that at least I would be a little bit more interested. And that's how it started.
When you realize things in your life happen for you truly, especially in hindsight. Everybody knows it in hindsight, right? If you look back at any disaster, tragedy, most people look back 5-10 years later, they go, that happened for me. That was actually a good thing. And so I was unemployed. I couldn't find a job. And my old man, my dad, was the best dad role model you could ever have in your life. Hardworking man, good man. He's a better man than me. Has more integrity than me. He's the best man I've ever known. But when I was growing up, my dad had a drinking problem. And so my dad had gotten sober recently, and he was going to these meetings. And he comes home from one of his meetings and says, there's a guy at my meeting who can get you a job. And it's right down the street in San Dimas. You're going to be working with kids. Doesn't pay anything. It's $6 an hour, but you're going to get this damn job. So show up there tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., ask for Tim. So I drive down there. It's a place called McKinley Home for Boys. Little did I know that would alter my entire life. That was the most significant thing that happened to me. And so I walk in there, I said, I'm Ed Milet, I'm here for the job. They're like, what job? I'm like, I don't know, just my dad told me to show up here. Yeah. And I need to ask for Tim. They're like, we have no idea who the hell Tim is. What's his last name? I said, I don't know his last name. And they're like, so you showed up for a job that you don't know what it is and you don't know who it is that's hiring you. I'm like, here's what I know. He's an alcoholic. I'm like, oh, Tim. That's him. Yeah, we know that Tim. And so they bring me to the guy and he says, you're hired, let's go. Like literally shakes my hand and you're hired. And he introduces me to these 8 boys. That were my boys. They were 7, 8, and 9 years old. And basically, I lived with these boys, these precious boys. And we ended up adding a few more. My boys were all wards of the court. They were all molested by family or parents were in prison. And so they had no family. And so my whole life changed. All of a sudden, I'm this 22-year-old guy. These guys become my sons. I lived with them. It altered me completely. Wow. Like what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be famous and rich and successful. And now I just wanted to serve. Yeah. I wanted to help. Little did I find out I could get rich and famous and all that other stuff I thought I wanted through serving people, right? And so just altered me, man.
We really do acquire what we're most obsessed with. So if you're obsessed with your worries and your stresses and your problems, you will find a freaking way to obsess on them and you'll eventually possess them. Mm-hmm. Same with the things you want. People think that's corny, but I'll give you an example, an addict. Addicts take all different kinds of forms, but we could go out on the street here. And by the way, I want to make sure that people understand this. Not everybody that lives on the street is an addict. They've got mental illness or some people actually chosen to live there. Mm-hmm. But if we found an addict that was living on the street, no job, no income, no source of money, they find a way to get their drug, don't they? You find a way. If you're obsessed with something enough, regardless of the conditions, and addicts are the perfect example. They can have no money, no resources, been locked up before. Everyone knows they're trying to get it. They could be in support me. But if they want that drug bad enough with no resources, no nothing, they find a way to get it. That's how humans are when they get obsessed with something. So don't tell me you can't win. Don't tell me you can't build your company. You can't get the person you want or the money you want. If you want it like an addict, bad analogy, but true. You want it like an addict needs their fix. You'll find a way to get it. That's how human beings are.
So then the next best predictor of lifetime success is conscientiousness. Well, so, and of the two aspects of conscientiousness, say orderliness and industriousness, the better predictor is industriousness. So the question is, well, what can you do about your industriousness? And the answer to that is, well, that's kind of rough too, because there's a strong genetic component. But you can work on micro habits with regards to your conscientiousness. And I think the best micro habits, this is partly to do with this future authoring program processes, I think the best thing you can do with regards to your conscientiousness is to set up some aims for yourself. goals that you actually value. And the Future Authoring Program helps people do that. And basically, it does a situational analysis of, it helps you do a situational analysis of your life more than a psychological analysis, I would say. And so the questions are something like, well, all right, you're going to have to put some effort into your life, and you need to be motivated to do that. And so what are the potential sources of motivation? Well, you could think about them in the Big Five manner. You know, if you're extroverted, you want friends. If you're agreeable, you want an intimate relationship. If you're disagreeable, you want to win competitions. If you're open, you want to engage in creative activity. If you're high in neuroticism, you want security. Okay, so those are all sources of potential motivation that you could draw on, that you could tailor to your own, you know, your own personality. But then there are dimensions that you want to consider your life across. And so we ask people about, well, you know, if you could have your life the way you wanted it in 3 to 5 years, if you were taking care of yourself properly, you know, what would you want from your friendships? What would you want from your intimate relationship? How would you like to structure your family? What do you want for your career? Well, how are you going to use your time outside of your job? And how are you going to regulate your mental and physical health, and maybe also your drug and alcohol use? Because that's a good place to auger down, you know, because alcoholism, for example, wipes out, you know, 5 to 10% of people. So you want to keep that under control. And then so maybe, you know, you develop a vision of what you would like your life to be, and that associates the goal. Well, once the goal is established, and then you break down the goal into micro processes that you can implement. The micro processes become rewarding in proportion, in relation to their causal association with the goal, and that tangles in your incentive reward system. You know, we talked about the dopaminergic incentive reward system, and that's the thing that keeps you moving forward. And the way it works is that it works better if it produces positive emotion when it can see you moving towards a valued goal. Okay, well, what's the implication of that? Life. Better have a valued goal, because otherwise you can't get any positive motivation working out. And so the more valuable the goal, in principle, the more the micro processes associated with that goal start to take on a positive charge. And so what that means is, well, you get up in the morning and you're excited about the day, you're ready to go. And so as far as I can tell, what you do is you specify your long-term ideal. Maybe you also specify a place you want to stay the hell away from, so that you're terrified to fail as well as excited about succeeding, because that's also useful. You specify your goal. You do that in some sense as a unique individual. You want to specify goals that make you say, oh, if that could happen as a consequence of my efforts, it would clearly be worthwhile.
My father that day decided what to do was, if I failed and I've been worthless to my family, I must leave. And he did. And to me, it was the worst day of my life. I'll never forget it. I loved him more than anything. I had 4 fathers. He's the one I finally got attached to. It's like, Mom, I'm confused. But then finally, years later, I got the benefit of it, because out of all those experiences and all that pain, that day I made 3 different decisions. First decision is I just decided to focus on something different than him, and that's the power we have. We get to decide what to focus on, and my decision number 1 is I want to focus on the fact there's food. What a concept. Pretty cool. But the most powerful thing to change my life was meaning. I said, what does this mean? Because my father had always said, my mother had always said, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Don't care about anybody, they don't care about you. And that day I had physical evidence. Those you bringing food, I want you to know that's not just food. That's called love for someone. That's called hope for someone. That's called surprise for someone. And that day for me, I went, strangers care. And so I started caring about strangers. And I decided someday I'm gonna do the same. So when I was 17, I fed 2 families. It was like one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I went to the grocery store, I was all excited, saved up all my money, went to the manager and said, I want to feed 2 families, this is what I'm doing, it's not for me, give me a discount. And he gave me 10%. I thought, cheap bastard. But I went out and I delivered this food, and ironically, I called this church and I asked in the barrio, a particular place, where are some families in need? They gave me 2 names. I put on t-shirt and jeans. I wasn't going to be acknowledged. I also didn't want someone to be insulted, because I saw what happened to my father. And I wrote a note, it said, this is a note from a friend. And I said, I just want you to know, we know you're having difficult times, everyone does at times. And I want you to have a beautiful Thanksgiving. And please feel loved, take care of your family, and someday, if you can, do well enough to do this for one of the family and pass it on. But love a friend. And I had it written in Spanish as well. And I'll never forget, first place I pull up, this rotten old van, stick shift van, that I borrowed from a buddy of mine, with all these bags of food. And I went into this place and got out, pulled up this little tiny building, really tiny, knocked on the door. And when I knocked on the door, this little woman opened the door. It's probably half my size. She's not hard, I'm 6'7", so she's like 5'2". And she looked up at me like this, and she saw the groceries, and she screamed. And she started grabbing my head and pulled it down and kissing me. And I was like, no, 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 delivery boy, delivery boy. And she goes, no, God gift, God gift, God gift. And she didn't speak English, so I handed her the note. She read the note, she crying again, started trying to kiss me again. I said, no, no. She goes, God gift, God gift. So I pointed, where do I put this? In this tiny little room. There's a table there. I put the food down. And I went over to get some more groceries. And when I did, 4 children come running out. And one hits my leg and wouldn't let go. And when they saw the pumpkin pie, it was over. And it was one of the most emotional experiences of my life because, first of all, this little boy just wouldn't let go. And I delivered this food, and this woman was crying and smiling. And I stayed there just to take it in for a few minutes, seeing them all. It was like going back in time. And then as I went to go leave, I couldn't speak Spanish, and she was like trying to say something in Spanish. I didn't know what to say, and it was Thanksgiving, so I said, Feliz Navidad. I heard the song, okay? And she laughed and laughed. She's crying and laughing. One of the more beautiful experiences of life, isn't it? When you can have both those experiences in your body simultaneously. And I remember I got in the van, and all the 4 kids were sitting on the bench here, and she was standing there waving, and I pulled in, go in reverse, and I looked in the mirror, and as I looked in the mirror, I saw these kids there, and I saw Mom crying and smiling still, and then I lost it. I started crying uncontrollably, and I'm like trying to put the thing in gear, the tears come through my eyes, and I thought to myself, what? I mean, this is a beautiful thing, why am I crying? And then I realized what a gift that day was. I realized that my worst day of my life was my best day. And my goal for you, if you don't already have it, my guess is you've already done it, knowing where you are in your world today. But maybe your second worst day, it's time to make a best day. Because out of every tragedy, out of every pain, it only gets healed when we find a deeper meaning. When we find there's a higher purpose in it. And I realized I wouldn't have been there that day. I wouldn't have that hunger to help somebody else if I hadn't had the hunger in my own soul at one point missing. So it's very personal to me. And I want to thank all of you that made the contributions. And I told Mark, and I've announced that I'm going to match the 1 million meals if you hit it. And I'm sure as hell expecting that you will. And so we'll get 2 million. And when I told that, then Mark said, I'll match that.
So in the mid-1980s, a theologian named James Carsey wrote this little book called Finite and Infinite Games, in which he defines these 2 kinds of games. Finite games, which have known players, fixed rules, and agreed upon objectives. Football, right? There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the objective is to win the game. And then there's infinite games. Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players. You don't necessarily know who all the other players are. The rules are changeable. You can play however you want. And the objective is to perpetuate the game, to stay in the game as long as possible. What I find so fascinating about this idea when I first learned about it is we are players in multiple infinite games every day of our lives. There's no such thing as being the winner in your marriage, you know. There's no such thing as winning global politics, and there's definitely no such thing as winning business. Business is an infinite game. And yet, when we listen to the language of too many leaders, they talk about being number one, being the best, and beating their competition. Based on what? There's no agreed upon objectives, there's no agreed upon timeframes. And so what ends up happening is you have people building organizations and leading with a finite mindset, playing to win, in a game where there's no such thing as winning. And when we play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, there's a few very predictable and consistent outcomes, amongst which include the decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, the decline of innovation, all of which contribute to the eventual demise of the organization itself. And so what I wrote about is what it means to lead with an infinite mindset, because we teach leadership as if it were a finite game. People start business with the goal of winning, being number one, and that's a problem, because that's impossible. So what I wrote about in the game is leading with an infinite mindset.
I want to start, so the book is great, by the way, and I really enjoyed it. It's a wonderful pick and mix, as they call it in the UK, of different topics where you're diving in, sometimes very quickly, and then other times much more prolonged.
Yeah, depending on the subject, and or depending on how much I knew about the subject brought to me that I could then comment on.
Equally fair.
Yeah.
One of the ones that really hit me was you talking about your dad. You called it a eulogy of sorts, and you went through some of the things that he did, which I didn't know anything about your dad before reading that. Mm-hmm. What was it about your dad that impacted you so much that you still carry today?
So it's not so much, oh, he's my dad, I love my dad, that's all true, but at the end of the day, what matters is for who and what you become in life. For me, at least, was what level of wisdom did he glean in his life and then successfully communicate to me, either by example or by just explicit statement. And that combination of those two means of delivery had some important impact. See what I did there? Impacts on my life. Just for example, and I gave these examples in that eulogy was a letter to him during the memorial service. He died a couple of years ago at age 89, so it was not a tragic death. But you still miss someone even though you know they're ready to check out. And I'll just give one example, if I may. In high school, he was in gym class, and they were lining up, and they were about to enter the next athletic unit, and it was track and field. And the gym instructor pointed to my father online and said, Cyril Tyson, everyone look at him. He does not have the body type that would excel in track. And they used him as an example. And he says, what? No one is going to tell me what I can't do in my life. And he used that as the reason to start running. And he started track in that moment. I mean, not that exact moment, but he decided that one of his next tasks in life would be to take up running and excel at it. Within a few years of that, he became world class. At one time, had the 5th fastest time in the world. In the middle distance, they don't run this anymore, 600-yard run. And he, in 1948, the Olympics was not yet ready to come back to us because we're still roiling from the Second World War. Instead, there was still an Olympics. It was called the GI Olympics, and it was held in Hitler's stadium. Whoa. So he competed in Hitler's stadium in the late 1940s. It's just one of the great memories of his life. But the reason why I'm saying all of that is a friend of his named Johnny Johnson, who they were competing against the New York Athletic Club. In the day, it mattered that you had amateur status. No one's thinking of that anymore. But back then, you couldn't compete in the Olympics if you were professional at all. And there's so professional was deemed sort of, you were tainted in some way. And it's hard to think that used to be how people thought, but that's how it was. In the day, once you graduated college, you needed some sanctioning body to compete with. So there were athletic clubs. The New York Athletic Club at the time accepted only white Protestants. So there was another club called the Pioneer Club, which took everybody who was not accepted to the New York Athletic Club, which was basically blacks and Jews, is really what that came down to. And some Catholics, but basically blacks and Jews. So he competed alongside Jewish athletes. So there they are competing against the New York Athletic Club, and his best friend, Johnny Johnson, okay, was coming around the back stretch, might have been the quarter mile, coming on the final straightaway. And a runner from the New York Athletic Club is a few paces behind him. And Johnny Johnson overhears that runner's coach say, "Catch that nigger." And he overheard this. So what did he say to himself? He said, "This is one nigga he ain't gonna catch." And that extended his lead to the finish line. And he tells this story not with any bitter tone, as you might think. Any story like that today would certainly be told with great remorse and consternation. So he never had that kind of tone when he shared those stories with us. It was, here's an occasion to parlay what today might be called a microaggression into a reason to excel even more than you had expected of your own abilities and talents. And so I have taken that lesson with me. He was just telling a story. He didn't say, "Let me give my kids a lesson today." No, these are just things that happened in his life. And in my sort of letter to him in death, I recount for the audience several of these examples, and that among them.
If some of y'all, you got some homeboys you connected with, but you know they ain't really living how you supposed to be living and they leading you down the wrong way, you know from Brian's story, yo, if I remove myself from it, if I plug in with positive people, I can make it.
Why would you waste 1 second doing something that wasn't progressing your dream?
Go after this thing called life. And don't look back and have regrets. Understand that you're in a place and a position right now with hard work and valuing people, nothing. I promise you that everything is not going to go the way you wanted it to on every single play. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be difficult. Anything that comes fast and easy leaves you the same way. What are you going to do? What are you going to do when time is tough? What are you willing to sacrifice for greatness?
Your future self is counting on your current self to never take shortcuts and never lack integrity. Because a day will come for you to walk with character and have clarity. Greatness is your destiny. But at times you must reboot your mental computer. Because every step you take today will directly affect your future.
And so when I live from the moment, what I'm doing is I'm celebrating it, I'm acknowledging it, and I'm able to be present in it. And so what stops me from that is the guilt of the past and the anxiety of the past and the resistance of what I've been through, afraid of going through it again.
Some become a victim to life. Things happen, pain, heartache, and loss. We can either be the victim or the victor to these situations. They say win or lose, at least you took part. But this is life. I am not here to take part. I am here to win. One life.
You'll never be able to fix what's behind you. You have to run after what's in front of you.